Hi, everyone. It's Jane from Illumini Body here with another weekly hip stretch. So this week we're going to be stretching our hamstrings. There are tons of ways you can stretch your hamstrings. I've done a couple of them already in the weekly hip stretch series, but this one I like a lot because it's accessible to everyone. A lot of people have a hard time with the very traditional strap around the foot, lifting the leg up. It's uncomfortable if you can't get your knees straight. You know, your leg ends up being very far away from you. So in this particular case, we're going to be sitting on a chair right there. And you're less bringing your leg toward your trunk, and you're bringing your trunk toward, instead, you're bringing your trunk toward your leg. So it's a little bit easier to manage in terms of just moving your body. And it is also something you can really easily do while you're working. So you can take a 1 minute break, 2 minute break, and just do a nice hamstring stretch during the day. Hamstring stretches are great because not only do they stretch your hamstrings, they also can alleviate pain in your back. Hamstrings go up to your pelvis so they can pull on your low back, and a lot of people have tight low back pain that is heavily contributed to by tight hamstrings. So this is just a great, easy stretch that you can do pretty much anywhere without a whole lot of fuss, without a whole lot of props, and without a whole lot of worry about being able to do it correctly. Okay, so let's grab a chair. I have a stool here and we'll get started. Okay, small dog is optional. You can have one. If you have one, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is sit on the edge of the chair. One of the other reasons I like this chair, I like using a chair, is because it really allows you to understand where your pelvis is. If you've watched other hamstring stretch videos that I've done, it's very important to keep your pelvis stable and not to have it lifting, because once you start to move it around and lift it, you're not really stretching the hamstrings to the degree that they can be. You're not focused on the hamstrings, let's put it that way. So I like this because your pelvis stays on the chair, and if it starts to lift, you get a lot of feedback from the chair. You can tell, right? Okay, so in this version, we're going to do one at a time. And I've got my left leg straight, heel on the floor. My toes are coming toward me. So this is what we call dorsiflexed. You don't really need to know that, but just FYI. So my toes are sort of pulling towards me. So I get already a stretch in the back of my leg, really in the back of my calf particularly. My other foot is on the ground. I like to have the seat at a height where the foot can be on the ground and not sort of lifted or like that. So just so it feels more grounded for your body. So I'm gonna just bring my thumbs to my hip creases first and just kind of like encourage the hip creases to find some depth, letting those superficial hip flexors relax. And I'm gonna think about that crease as a hinge point. So what I'm not trying to do is round in my low back, even though that might feel good, especially if you have a tight low back, but we're going to hinge. So what that does, your hamstring connects right about here. What that does is it allows this part of your body to come forward and this to stay stable. So anything from here up is reaching while this stays stable and has to stretch. Right? So what I want us to think about is that the belly is trying not to just flop down on the thighs, right? You're pulling it in and up. You're bringing your toes toward you. And the further you go, the further you might feel a stretch. And this foot on the ground is just stabilizing you. Good. And then to come up, we're going to come straight up. Good. And then we'll just do that a couple of times. Really hinge forward, try to keep the spine in this neutral position. Good, belly lifting away from the thighs. Good, so your sit bone here is gonna tilt back a little bit, right? So the pelvis is going like this, It's going to tilt back and give a little bit of a pull to the hamstring. All right, so that's where you're getting stretch. And then you're going to come back up. Good. And then we'll try the other leg. One leg might be tighter than the other leg. That's pretty standard in many, many, many people, myself included. And see how it goes. Good. So just remember, try not to round the low back, because when you round the low back, the sits bones don't go anywhere, right? You're just getting stretch in here. We're not getting stretch from here down. When we hinge, the pelvis, top of the pelvis tips forward, bottom tips back, and that's where your hamstrings are, and that's what gets pulled back. All right. Thank you. And let me know what you think about this. Jane at illumini.com. All right. I'll see you next week. Happy hips.